you. So yeah, this presentation, I actually thought about what can I present. It should be definitely about the Healthy Life Years indicator. Then I thought I can just focus on my 3 papers that I was doing during my PhD, but this would feel a bit like another PhD defensio. So I also present something new, something old and something new, and Marc was giving this nice, next slide. Okay, I have to click. When Marc was giving this nice overview of my life course, I thought we should have spoken to each other because I prepared an Axis diagram about myself, and I think this would have been perfect. So I was born in 1989, and then, as Marc said, in 2017, I joined the VID, and then for 4 years, I was working mainly on the Healthy Life Years indicator and finished the PhD in 2021. And now in the January of 2022, I went to Wiesbaden. And then I also did some small fun gimmicks. So I estimated my survival probability from the core perspective. It's 98% from age 0 to 32. And then there's also this legend. So at the moment, everything is blue, but with age, of course, it will get more to the orange level. Yeah, then I included this super nice picture here. Hope that's all right. We took this on the main building from the Academy of Sciences not too long ago, quite recently. So that's the roofs of Vienna, you can see here. And that's the team. Marc as a research team leader and also as a PI of the university project, Levels and Trends of Health Expectancy, Understanding its Measurement and Estimation Sensitivity, which has been called LETHE. And yeah, so first of all, of course, we need to speak about what is this health expectancy indicator and why do we need it. So I focus a lot on this presentation on Austria as an example because of obvious reasons. And this is the time trend and life expectancy for women and men. And overall, it's increasing the longevity. There are some period shocks. For example, here, that's why I originally did this graph to show this decrease in life expectancy in 2020 due to Corona. Interestingly, there are new results from Statistic Austria, I think, a new press release. The life expectancy is stagnating, I think, where the new estimate. But anyway, so the overall trend has been increasing over time. And this was not only for Austria, but for many countries in Europe and worldwide. And the big question was always then, are we living longer in good or in poor health? And for this, we need another indicator because this only focuses on overall mortality. We need to know how much spent, how much time we are expected in the healthy state. And that's the health expectancy. So there are many health expectancies. So a health expectancy can be seen as an umbrella term. There are a lot of ways to calculate it. A lot of, you can use different data, different methods, different, this is also very important, the health question, how do you actually define health? And the Healthy Life Years indicator used by EU, this refers to one specific method. And this is, you use the data from the EU SILC, then you calculate prevalence, then you combine it with the period life tables, so to say with the life expectancy, and the health question is called the GALI, the Global Activity Limitation Indicator, and the question is for at least the past 6 months, to what extent have you been limited because of a health problem in activities people usually do, and only if you report no limited at all, you are counted as a healthy person. And this health indicator has been used by the EU to monitor population health with a big aim, of course, to ensure healthy, active, independent lives while aging. So there's a big policy implication. We look at this indicator and then we know which countries are lagging behind and which countries are having progress. There was also this aim to increase healthy life years by, I think, 2 years in 2020. And yeah, so let's look at some results. So here's the life expectancy at birth for men and women 2018. There's a healthy life years on the other side. And I choose here the colors, maybe a bit counterintuitively. The lower the value, the more red. And I thought it's to show which countries have room for improvement, so to say. And in terms of life expectancy, this kind of distribution over countries is well documented, I would say. So we have, usually they have like this small border that they do here. It's between Central Eastern and Central Western Europe. South usually has higher, and we know it's correlated to GDP. From Preston, we know from Endale and Wolfgang, it might be even more correlated with education level. So usually when you look at the life expectancy, you can explain the differences quite well. And for healthy life years, it holds to some extent, but there are also a lot of examples where you would maybe expect a country is doing much better or much worse. As an example, Finland has really high life expectancy, but really low healthy life years. Or another example would be Austria, which has also, in terms of mortality, they're doing above EU average, but for the healthy life years, it's more on the bottom of the ranking. I show this here. I hope you can read it. It's maybe a little bit small, but on the left side you have the life expectancy rank. On the right side you have the healthy life years rank. And for example, Finland goes from 84, this is for women, here all the way down to 57.13. Bulgaria, on the other hand, has the highest mortality in the EU28 for women, but in terms of healthy life years, it jumps really high to rank 5, actually. And yeah, that's maybe not really easy to explain, and that's why we need a closer look. So that's would be part 1. What is the reason for the observed differences between life expectancy and healthy life years? So let's think about again, what do we put in this healthy life years indicator? We put death rates and we put prevalence, this Gali prevalence, this question about activity limitations. And here I plotted for all the EU28, the death rates on a log scale. And then the gray one is all the countries. And then I pointed out some with colors, for example, the average. And then Spain with the lowest mortality. That's why it's really here on the bottom of this grayish thingy. And Austria is in the middle, and Bulgaria has the highest mortality. And how I see it is the pattern for mortality is really clear. So it's infant mortality, then it goes down, and then from age 30 about, we have this composit shape, it's called, this linear increase with age. And we have some variation, but basically it's just the level is quite shifted, but it's not completely different. On the other hand, the prevalence data, this looks for me much more variance. So we have a lot of different shapes. Here, Sweden, for example, if you remember, that was the country with the highest health expectancy in healthy life years, has really, really low prevalence, almost across all ages. So this is 0.2%. Then it goes down again, it goes up again. Then Denmark starts already with 0.2, then it goes up and down. Austria is quite high. And one question is, of course, what does it reflect? Is it maybe some kind of reporting issues because it's self-reported? But this is not the aim of this exercise that I want to present, because first I thought, let's check how sensitive the healthy life years indicator is towards mortality information, towards health information. And what I did here, I downloaded the health and mortality data from this webpage, EuroHex, and then I built a function in R where you can just put in the mortality country that you want, for example, EU average mortality rates and health for Austria. And then you get the healthy life years estimate. And then I just thought, let's control for mortality. So just hold it constant and just check the health data. And then I did it for men and women. And I think it's quite interesting. So left side is women, right side is men. And then this is the original range. And then the right one is the new one. And for women, it seems like the healthy life is indicator is mainly driven by this health information. So of course, you have like a country like Bulgaria, which has pretty low mortality. If you give it the EU average, it increases slightly, but not too much. In other countries, they might profit from lower mortality and then they decrease if they are subjected to the EU average. But overall, I would say it shows that it's the health information seems to be quite important. For men, it's to some extent holds, but there's more variation. I would say, as a first gut feeling, this is, by the way, a paper I'm writing with Vanessa, a colleague, which is now, I think, submitted. And yes, I think this is related to more variation in the mortality profile for men. So women, they also have some variation, but I think for men might be more pronounced, and that's why we see also a higher impact of mortality. So the next thing I tried out was, let's check it over time. So health and mortality, the aim of the EU is always to increase it over time. I mentioned this goal of increasing healthy life years by 2 years. So I thought, what happens if Austria has a reduction in mortality rates by 1%, and then you calculate the healthy life years again, and you get plus 0.1% higher healthy life years. If you do the same with the prevalence, then it shows that it has a bigger impact. But I have not tested this systematically, just for this presentation. I did it actually just to give some sensitivity analysis. And I think it also indicates that the health information might be more here the driving force. All right, the second part already. Does it hold also for subpopulations? And if it, yes, what are the implications? So now we are not looking at specifically look at countries, but we also take into account the composition of the country. Here, this is Italian women. Then you have the prevalence for the high, the medium, and the low educated. And as one would expect, the low educated are the most unhealthy ones, and the high educated are the healthiest ones, lowest prevalence. So, and of course, then the size of this population share matters. For example, if you have a lot of highly educated, then the overall prevalence for Italian women would be more going to this kind of curve, to the lower, to the high educated, to the lower prevalence. And the other way around, if it be a lot of low educated, would go more to this direction. And in Italy, in 2016, there were about 50% of Italian women low educated, while in Estonia, there were 18. So the reason, the overall thinking behind this reasoning was, how would it actually matter if all the populations had the same population composition by educational attainment? So we hold again, we do it again a standardization exercise, we hold the composition standard, constant, and then we check again if maybe some of the cross-country differences might be attributed to differences in the composition by educational attainment. And then I have here this paper was published. This was the paper Marc mentioned in the beginning, the last one of my PhD articles, the single author one. And yeah, indeed, here's Italy, Italian women. If they had the average of the EU, they would increase by 1.7 their healthy life years. In other countries which have a higher educated population compared to the EU average, they lose something, obviously, but the rank change is not affected too much. So Sweden always remains on top. Italy could increase a little bit, but overall the ranking is not affected too much. This is not the whole 16 countries. I could not do it for all the countries, and here on the slide, otherwise it gets too small. I could not include all the other remaining countries. But yeah, overall the ranking, some are affected. Portugal, for example, had a high increase, but it's not so much. And I would say it's because the differences in the health life estimates are so large that this 1.7 or minus 1.9 does not change the rank. So the last part is now we checked if some of the differences are also maybe attributed to the noise and prevalence data, the noisy prevalence data. So here again, the example of Austrian woman, you have in red 2009, and then a bit later in history, in 2012, you have lower prevalence. So this can be interpreted as an improvement in population health. But then in the last one, 2016, it's again higher. And then it's of course difficult, for me at least. I also did some confidence bands here in this transparent color, which are overlapping. It's quite hard now to assess, did Austrian women experience improvements or not? Because it's like, first it goes up, it goes down. So how do we deal with it? So there's also a lot of uncertainty. And that's why we checked a lot of different methods, how we can maybe model it, take more uncertainty into account, maybe smooth it a bit. And this is also joint work with Vanessa. So we did a lot of sensitivity analysis here. I present here, for example, for Austrian women 2014, some results. This black one is the actual observed data. It's quite noisy, goes up and down. And what the indicator usually is doing is they assume constant hazard for 5 years intervals. So you just aggregate by 5 years. This is shown in blue here. Then you have like the step. And surprisingly, at least for me, I actually thought this noising thing would lead to a different result, but there's almost no difference. So between this one and this, you can also aggregate it in 10 years, maybe you have really small sample size and you feel like you should have a bit wider age intervals. Then you have a change, a smaller one by 0.6 years. You can do a spline smoothing, polynomial fit, if you just assume the health profile should have some specific shape and the rest is only noise, also has a small impact. So this is also interesting. The EU SILC does not ask or does not include people below age 16. So we don't know, we don't have any information for people below age 16. And what usually has been done is you assume that the prevalence for people age 0 to age 16 is half of the prevalence of the next age interval, which would be 16 to 20. And of course, if you have a prevalence which is really low for 16 to 20, then you also have a quite low prevalence for the 0 to 16 years old. But if you remember the case of Denmark, which already started with 20% unhealthy, then you will simply assume that people at age 0 and 1 and 2 are unhealthy to 10%. And this, of course, has a big impact. You're familiar with the life table, you know what happens in the beginning, has a big impact on the average, on the expectancy value. So we also tested this assumption and simply assumed no limitations at age 0 to 16, which also makes maybe sense from a theoretical point of view, because if you remember the question, it's about activity limitations people usually do. And I don't know, I don't think it was designed for young people or for children explicitly, because like a baby, what kind of activity limitations would a baby report? So that's also something we questioned here. Another thing we were playing around with is, well, usually the Eurostat, they close life tables at age 85, and also the prevalence is calculated until age 85 and then 85 plus. And we don't know what happens at older ages. Maybe also relates to the fact that we do not include institutionalized people in the EU SILC. So if someone is really old goes to the care home, because obviously also because of health problems. We don't have this person in the sample. So we did some extrapolation. This is an extreme case of Germany in the last EU6 waves. The data we have access to was already truncated at age 75. That's why we simply fitted a GAM, a generalized additive model, and then we predicted to older ages, get a kind of big uncertainty, of course, at older ages. And then we combined it not with Eurostat, but with HMD, with human mortality database, mortality rates, because they have also mortality for older ages up to 110. But we did it until 100, and then we checked the differences. In this special case, of course, it matters a lot, because 75 is definitely too young for a healthy life years indicator, which is supposed to reflect if someone is aging in health or not. But overall, I would say, that's already a conclusion. Overall, we would say that the ranking and so much is not so much affected. We always find a specific case where it matters, but the sensitivity analysis with the smoothing and so on has some effect, but not maybe as much as I expected in the beginning of the paper. So what have we learned? Well, what I tried to make clear is that I believe the healthy life indicator is really sensitive to the health information, which has the reason is because there are more differences in health than in mortality. It compensates the mortality effect for some cases. That's why we have this disassociation between life expectancy and healthy life years. The Bulgaria and Finland example. It is hard to correctly interpret the differences in this prevalence. We don't know if it's real health inequalities, if the Austrian population is really much more unhealthy, or maybe they have differences in the reporting behavior. I lived in Vienna, that's why I know there's a stereotype of this always complaining Viennese person, so could be also driven by this. We don't know. And if it would be like this, it's also a question, does it matter? If someone is subjectively feeling not good, does it then matter if objectively this person feels good or not? This is more like a philosophical question. But it's hard then to interpret these differences. Then I also would like to acknowledge the previous work. So there was a lot done by this Revis network. I mentioned here 2 books. One was published in 2020, the other one in 2002. And they really tried their best to harmonize it. They did a lot of improvements. And also one challenge in this whole PhD phase was probably also find something which has not been done yet, because if you read all the work they've done, it's quite hard. It feels like they did everything already. I hope I could contribute with my PhD thesis to this discussion a bit. And overall conclusion, I would say, for me at least at the moment, is that there are some problems about harmonization and comparability, and we cannot really fully solve it. For me, at least it makes more sense to still report numbers, even though they're not perfect, because we get at least some kind of direction, we have a feeling, but it is important to also raise awareness of potential problems to avoid misinterpretation, overinterpretation. And this is, I mentioned here this article, because he did a similar thing with the ranking and so on. And here I like to also acknowledge this one, because I think it's important to raise awareness of these problems, because otherwise people might look at the healthy life years indicator and then think, why is one country doing so well and so not? I always remember the story when a colleague in Vienna was asking us about this healthy life years indicator and why the specific country was doing so well or not so well, and had really sophisticated explanations. Could be this specific health policy and so on, and might be good if you then could simply say, well, it could also be just like I showed, the prevalence is just much lower, and we don't really know what it's reflecting. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation.